I started to say, so NAMI Davidson County has been doing an educational collaboration with Vanderbilt for several years now, and we are very, very pleased to have a guest that we know, because he then, and many of you know too, Johnny has been a part of Vanderbilt Behavioral Health. I was surprised to see how many years. He still looks so useful. So we know it can't possibly be that many years, but 32 years is what I saw, and I had no idea it was that long. And he's currently serves as the nursing education specialist for Vanderbilt Behavioral Health, and does the professional development for the 250 clinical employees. And he's a Vanderbilt nurse, but we know him as someone, I think you may still be involved in RAP. You can let me know about that. And so we just know that he's a very engaged professional, and it is very relational with, and I know you may not be doing quite as much direct contact with patients, but we know that if you do, we know that it is something that is considerate, respectful, joyful, and we have always appreciated your presence there at Vanderbilt. So we were delighted when he consented to do this particular talk on de-escalation. It is something that Johnny does for the staff there at Vanderbilt, and I think for our family members and people with lived experience from NAMI Davidson that are online, I think you're going to find it helpful too. So without further ado, I will hand it over to our speaker.
Well, Robin, thank you. Thank you for that very gracious welcome. My goodness, now I have to live up to that. Oh my goodness. That's right. so yes. So hello, NAMI Davidson County. My name is Johnny Woodard, and as Robin mentioned, I'm a nursing education specialist for Vanderbilt Behavioral Health. And so when Rhonda and Tracy asked me if I would be willing to spend a little time with you this evening, I didn't hesitate 1 minute. I said, of course, absolutely. What shall we talk about? And right off the bat, the consensus was that let's talk about verbal de-escalation. And I think that given the past year and however many months that we've been in, all dealing with all that we deal with anyway, and then let's throw a pandemic on that. Oh my goodness. Yes, we have faced a lot, and we have made it through a very trying year. So all the more reason that it's understandable that this is a really relative topic for us as far as helping someone when they're not doing so well, when their needs are not met, when they're getting those needs met in the best way that they know how. And we happen to be involved, or we happen to be there and trying to help in the situation. So when we think about verbal de-escalation, I want this to be time that we can chat back and forth together. So feel free to unmute and share with us when we post some questions and we have some examples. I'm going to have some kind of vignettes where I'll ask you to practice with me and to maybe even be a part of making some dramatic points, if you will, this evening. So just for the fact of maybe learning along the way. So I want to open up our floor this evening and just ask a question as far as what are some situations that you've been in when in the moment you were thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do with this. I don't know how to deal with this. Someone who escalated really quickly and you were just kind of left standing like, I don't know what to do. Does anybody have an example of that experience?
Looks like Kathy Martin would like to share. Hi, Kathy.
Hello. I had my son, and he was all right. I thought he was pretty good, but he took up and went spinning up and was trying to kill his dad with a broken glass plate.
Oh my goodness.
And he's a lot bigger than I am. He's 6'2", and he weighed about 250 pounds. So that was at the moment I thought, oh, this is a little bit much.
Well, and that even that you barely have time to react to that, right? When it happens so quickly, and that's physicality, right? I think that this verbal piece is so much more important than maybe other considerations that we could make when someone is having a tough time. And so, Kathy, I appreciate your example there. And sometimes that's what it feels like. It feels like we've poured gas on a fire, and it goes from 0 to 60, doesn't it? So I also want just to gauge with you really quickly, what would you like to take away from tonight? What's the main thing that you want to get out of our hour or so together this evening? Feel free to unmute and share that with me.
And Johnny, I think you're saying that to everyone, not just Kathy, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And I would just like to make a little note here. So this is going to be interactive. We are going to record, but we will not be, we'll record. If we do record, we will not share this pictorially if anyone is worried about identification. It will just have a sound recording. So so would anyone like to respond then to Johnny as to what you're hoping to get out of this evening?
I will. Just when you get in moments like that, what is the thing you got to be thinking about?
Okay.
With all that swirling in your head, you got to start thinking something sometimes.
So some things to do in the moment, perhaps, or maybe some words or phrasing that you could perhaps say is what I'm hearing, Kathy. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very good. Anybody else?
I agree with Kathy. Don't exacerbate the situation at the time when there's already heat in the moment. Just kind of keep things down and simple. Yeah, I agree with Kathy.
Okay. Well, I think you've helped me to really narrow my focus this evening, and I think we can deliver on that. So let's dive in. I have just a few slides that I want to share with you, and I promise it's not going to be an hour of slides. We're going to take a look at these. We're going to talk about a little bit of evidence and literature, and then we're going to dive right into, okay, how can I really use this, right? So bear with me 1 second. Let me share a screen with you.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. So I want to kind of build a base for us and talk about a really important research study that really helps to inform us as far as a lot of the things that we do that we know work. And many of you may be familiar with this study. It occurred in the mid-90s, and it's called the Adverse Childhood Experience Study. And this was a joint effort between the CDC, Centers for Disease Control, and Kaiser Permanente. And they looked at the effect of trauma with adult individuals, with this huge group that they asked and that they involved in the research to ask how childhood trauma affected them. And this study is hugely informing as far as how we can approach how we at the hospital where I work, Vanderbilt site, how we take care of our patients. And then also it helps to inform work like what we're talking about tonight too, as far as verbal de-escalation and another kind of model of care as far as trauma-informed care. So trauma really is a big focus of what we want to consider tonight. And in a nutshell, this study, they provided a questionnaire for those that participated, and they asked them about their experience of trauma in some categories. And you see those kind of outlined here. It was basically 10 areas of either abuse or household challenges or neglect. And what the study found, this is some of the statistics, it was, again, this was the mid-90s, and you can kind of see some of the totals there as far as the yeses in those categories. A 10-item questionnaire, if you will, as far as the experience of trauma in these areas. And so a yes to any of those questions provided you a point on this questionnaire. So it was a score, if you will. And so what we were looking at and what we're going to look at is sometimes when we're dealing with individuals, whether they're family members, whether they're acquaintances, someone that we know and we're trying to help, we want to think about remaining curious in that moment and thinking, wow, is this someone who has maybe experienced some of those higher numbers or higher levels of trauma in their life? And this is how they're reacting. And I wonder if that's it. I wonder why I'm seeing what I'm seeing so quickly. Kathy, like you mentioned, as far as your situation, which really kind of went from 0 to 60 really quickly. So we may refer to this as a high ACE score, and that's what we mean as far as this particular research. We want to think about what's happening not only with the person who we're trying to help and help them to settle and to regain control of themselves, but we want to think what's happening in our own bodies, because we're experiencing it too, aren't we? And so we think about what's going on in our own brain. And our brain is a pretty amazing thing. I think we'll all agree, but there's a lot going on when all of that happens. And we have structures in our brain that really act like gatekeepers to help us deal with memory, emotion, reaction, how we respond to certain situations. And that's kind of a stopgap. It's a stoplight or a green light for, okay, I'm either going to deal with this situation or I'm going to have to get the heck out of here, right? I think about, and I know we've all been in those situations where we either had to stay and really deal with the situation or get out of Dodge, right? I think about a previous boss of mine, and she was not from the South. She came to Vanderbilt and she formed a hiking club at our hospital. And so if we have anybody on our call who's new to the South, Nikki was her name. And she said to me, we sat down on a big rock to take a break. And one of the guys on the hike looked down and said, oh, look, a baby nest of copperheads. And so for those of you from the South, you may know that's a venomous snake, right? I am afraid of one good thing in this world, and it is the serpent. So I said to Nikki, well, I tell you what, that would not have been my reaction. I would have been running, screaming, and as my grandmother would say, acting like a plumb fool, right? Because I'm scared to death of them. Right? So we know that when that happens, we have a lot of hormones, we have a lot of chemicals that are pumped into our body to help us deal with situations like that. And so I want to take just a moment and I want to think about, let's think when we have dealt with situations like this previously, what are some of the lower level signs or symptoms that we might notice that cue us in to, wow, I've got to deal with this, or I've got to decide to exit, right? What are some of the things in situations that you've dealt with? What are some of those, if we were on a scale of 1 to 10, what are some of the 1s, 2s, and 3s? Some of the things that you notice first when you cue you into, this is not going so well, right? And I'm going to try to help this person, but I see that they're not doing so well. What do you notice?
I'll speak up. Voices are raised.
Voices are raised. Yeah, absolutely. So yes, maybe your level, your tone, or you notice that of someone. So absolutely. Yes. What else?
Johnny, when my sister would get upset, she would, if she was eating, she would chomp down on her fork really hard. And that was a signal. If
Okay.
you heard, then you knew things were starting to build inside her.
Okay. Well, I think that that's a good mention too, because if we know the person well, we may know some things that are typical that they do, and we may see some things that are not so typical. For someone who talks a lot, and then at this point in time, they're not saying much at all, or the other end, right? For someone who doesn't say much, and now they're all over the place, and they're very talkative. And as Margaret mentioned, yeah, their tone is maybe elevated. They're talking really fast. We notice some of those subtleties. So those are both really good mentions. Anybody else have anything that you notice?
Yes, mainly the body posture. A lot of them have a more aggressive body posture when they're talking to you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we know that obviously we're talking about verbal de-escalation. So our words, our word choices are powerful, aren't they? We can think about what we're going to say or what phrases we might use, and that's powerful. That's a tool. But then so is our body. So is our body language, isn't it? So yes, absolutely. Those are some of the first things that I noticed too. So yes, those are fantastic mentions. Here's the key takeaway that I want to share regarding this ACEs study, and that what the researchers found in this study was that there was a similarity with individuals who had experienced a high degree of trauma. I know that this is delicate work. I know that this is sensitive for us to talk about, and maybe some more so than others. But I want to embrace it in that sense and say that this is really important work that tells us that the experience of trauma, and especially the experience of trauma as a young child, can really have a negative effect as far as, and you see some of the chronic disease states that are listed here, and then some of the negative health behaviors that are also listed here. So one is a little bit like a domino effect of the other. One causes or can cause a higher risk for the development of some of these disease states. And so when I put that into, okay, I read this article, or I read about this research, but how does that really translate into what we're talking about? And it helps me to understand and think, well, wow, doesn't it make sense that if I am experiencing a lot of trauma, or if I have experienced a lot of trauma, that if frequently I'm experiencing all of those stress hormones, all of those chemicals that stay in my body and course through my veins, and it happens a lot, it kind of helps me understand that, yes, I might be at a higher risk for some of these diseases. And so this is why it's really important for us to be able to talk about research like this, because it helps us to inform not only how we go about trying to help someone in a situation like this, but which translates to a larger degree to how those in the healthcare field can help to take care of individuals who are in this position, right? I'm going to stop this share right now just because I want to make sure that we have enough time to go over the meat and potatoes of what we want to talk with this evening. And that is, I want to talk about 11 steps that may help you when we're dealing with individuals who are escalating really quickly, right? The first one that we want to talk about is your personal response to this. We mentioned that, yes, we have a person who's in a crisis. We have a person who's escalating, who's not doing so well. They're not doing well. They have this reaction, right? And then we are experiencing it as well, right? So we want to think about, okay, from my end, I can control what I do, right? How do I control my own biology? How do I control what's going on within me so that I can help the person who's not having a great day, right? So we want to think about a term here, and we want to think about a mirror response. A mirror response, right? Meaning that if I see you doing something, I may relate to that, right? So I'm gonna pause for just a second. And Tracy, I can't help but notice that you've been on your phone for almost the whole presentation. I want to just tell you that I don't play second fiddle to a phone. So I'm going to ask you to either put the phone down, or as the co-host here, I'm going to exit you. Am I abundantly clear?
Well,
I'm either clear or I'm not.
well, I thought I was trying to listen, but I got a lot going on.
We're going to pause right there. Okay. So that was play. Okay. I wanted to plan that little scenario to let us think for just a moment. I don't think you were expecting that, perhaps. Now, Tracy was, because I called her this afternoon, and I called her and said, I'm going to be really rude to you at a point here, right? And I want us to pause for just a second. How did you feel when I went off on Tracy like that just then? How did that make you feel?
Well, I think my heart rate sped up a little bit, and then I found myself kind of a little bit of a loss of words, how to respond back.
Okay. And that was Tracy on the receiving end of that. So from your view, right? What did that feel like for you? Did it make you anxious, or did you maybe think, what the heck is this guy doing? Oh my goodness, right? We've talked this a lot over Zoom over the last year, and I've had some participants to say, I thought you lost your mind. It makes me wonder if you really know what you're talking about, right? I can tell you that I've worked with Tracy for decades. It makes me really uncomfortable to talk to sweet Tracy like that. I have kind of a reaction myself, so it's hard for me to do too. But we want to think about, okay, just for a moment, what did that feel like? And what does that feel like if it's continual, if you experience that a lot, right? So here's one of the things we want to talk about. This is how 3 things that we can do to really help ourselves in that moment, right? I'm going to adjust my view for just a second. I'm going to get you to stand up with me. Wherever you are. Flo, I think you were driving. Be careful.
Yeah.
All right. So if you're standing, right, I want you to do this. I want you to take 3 good deep breaths with me, right? I'll cue you. So deep breath in, let that out. Deep breath in, let that out. Deep breath in, let that out, right? Very good. You know, that feels better already, right? Maybe we should have even started our evening with that, right? Taking 3 deep breaths, right? But that's the first thing, is that you're dealing with an intense situation. So if anybody's going to have oxygen coursing through their veins, it might as well be you, right? So take some deep breaths. Second, we all carry our tension in a part of our body, right? Let that go wherever that is. For me, that's my shoulders, and I have to remind myself, Johnny, peel your shoulders down off the ceiling and shake that out. Let it go, right? So shake it out, let it go, right? We've taken some deep breaths, we've let our tension go, and then next, we want to think about what we may call just not being so focused with our eyes on the person or on the situation, right? So let's have a seat and continue to talk about this, right? Not being so focused on the person, right? So I'm going to ask for some participation here, and it's merely by how I see you on the screen here, right? So I'm going to call on you to see if you'll help me out here. Jessica, I see you here. I'm going to ask you if you will be our person that's not doing so well. You've had a rotten day and you're escalated. You're not doing so well, right? So I'll get you to unmute and help us. Tracy, I'm going to get you to be someone who's trying to help Jessica. Mary, I'm going to get you to do the same thing. And if you can unmute. And so Mary, Tracy, those of you, you're trying to help Jess. And so I'm going to count you down. 3, 2, 1, go. And when I say go, I want, even virtually, I want you to get in your camera. I want you to point your focus toward Jess, and I want your hands out, and I want you to tell her, calm down, what's wrong with you, Jessica, right? So let's do that, right? So I'll count you down. 3, 2, 1, and go.
Jessica,
Calm down, Jessica, what
calm
is wrong?
down. Just calm down. What's the matter? Calm
What's
down.
wrong with you?
Oh,
Come on.
Right? Let's pause that. Thank you. All right. So that was obviously, this experience is a little different if we were together, but we're going to try to do some of the same takeaways with our Zoom call here. So, Jessica, what did that feel like for you with Mary, Tracy, and myself coming at you, telling you to calm down, all 3 at the same time?
Yeah, kind of felt like we didn't completely understand what was going on. We're kind of discrediting what I was feeling because didn't feel like I could calm down.
Okay. So I hear you saying that no part of that worked.
Yep.
Right? It didn't work, guys. So
Made me more anxious.
Okay. I think in the history of de-escalation, that has never worked, right? But how many times do we see people do that with each other, with family members, with whomever, just telling people, calm down, right? That doesn't work. As Jessica mentioned, that kind of put gas on the fire, actually, right? So we want to avoid that. We want to avoid things that we know don't work. And as one of you mentioned also, we want to think about our body language, right? we know that closed, arms crossed, gives a signal that I don't hear you, or I'm standoffish, right? Instead, open palms, hands to the side, relaxed, right? Body language really goes a long way, right? So we want to think about that again in your personal response to that. Two, Jessica, what was it like for you to have all eyes on you? Everybody on this call was watching you. What was that like?
Felt even more overwhelmed.
Okay, yes, that doesn't help either, does it? And you know, this is not necessarily surprising. I know that any of this, but yet sometimes it's what we do, and I think sometimes it's just because we're really nosy at base, aren't we? We, if there's a wreck on the interstate, we slow down. We want to see what's happened. We want to see what all is going on, and we're just nosy. But when things like this happen or are happening, if it's in the waiting room, if it's, you name the place, we naturally want to know what's going on, right? So not being so focused, so absolutely focused on what's going on can help to diffuse that situation in a sense, right? So we want to think about that too. So we're taking deep breaths. We got oxygen going. That's the one plus, right? We're letting go of our tension. That's two. And then we want to not be so focused on the individual that's having a tough time, right? We also, number two, we want to think about allowing space for our loved one, our individual, the person that we're trying to help, right? We know that space and the respect of space looks probably different for many of us on the call here, right? Space can be maybe aligned, or it can maybe be a part of maybe some of the trauma that I've experienced, right? For someone who has scored high on that ACE test that we talked about to begin with, space may be a real issue. So respecting someone's space is going to be important for us to remember in that sense. Some people may need more, right? I may need to knock on the door before I come into the room. I may need to hear you say, come in, or don't, right? I've had instances where individuals that I was trying to help said, whoa, dude. So what did I do? But stop, right? That's as comfortable as the person was with me being close to them, right? We also want to be really careful with touch while we're trying to help someone and verbally de-escalate them, because touch maybe is another trigger or another really sensitive subject for our person that we're trying to help. So I want to be really careful, even if it's someone I know really well, even if it's my family member, right? Lots of times, if we were maybe just in conversation with each other and we were having a really nice conversation, I might touch you on the shoulder, or you might touch me on the shoulder. That's something that is not uncommon in lots of circumstances, is it? But we want to be careful when someone's having a tough time to touch them in any way, because that can be misconstrued. That can be taken in the wrong way. So I want to be really careful with my use of touch or touching someone when they're having a tough moment there. Right? We also want to think about, number three, we want to think about establishing a relationship with this person. If you don't know them well, if you don't have a good relationship with them, right? My pastor has a really great phrase that I love to borrow when I'm thinking about this one. And she mentions that, that as far as establishing a relationship, we should practice radical hospitality. And I love that phrase. I think it's so cool when you are beyond nice to someone who's having a tough time, right? That's part of that staying curious. I wonder why this person is having such a tough time with this. It's gone so quickly, right? Or it's gone left so quickly. I wonder why, right? So staying curious in that moment. And we know that that communication is really important in this sense too, don't we? Body language, as we've already mentioned, right? Calling the person by their name or what they prefer to be called, or using their pronoun that they like to be called, right? That imparts respect for the person, right? Which you may be able to pick up on this. I'm seriously Southern. And so let's take a common name, perhaps Tamara, right? Maybe it's pronounced Tamara, Tamara, Tamara. Again, I'm really Southern. Maybe I hear Tamara and I think you're saying tomorrow, right? So part of my Southernness, right? But at the base, I want to impart. I want to give respect to the person, right? Use their name. Use good eye contact. If you can be on the same level and that feels safe at that point, so that you're not towering over someone, which puts you in a dominant position. If you can sit, that can help. Again, as long as you feel safe in the situation and you gauge that. There's a lot that you gauge with all of these things that we're talking about and that we're going to talk about. And you are that person in the moment that's making a lot of decisions really quickly. And so part of that, the part of it is the basic tool. And then how you apply it really depends on what you're experiencing and what all is going on in the moment, right? So establishing a relationship, right? So when you're talking with the person, you also want to be brief, right? Many times we add a lot of words to what we're trying to, the point we're trying to get across, don't we? You don't have to write this down, but think about writing down the answers to these questions, okay? Think about writing them down, okay? Write down a friend from high school, a hobby you like, something you used to do but you don't do anymore, your favorite color, your favorite number, a phone number for your current number, your mother's maiden name, what you did for dinner last night, how many hours you slept, and your favorite TV show. I'm out of breath just giving you the directives, right? Kathy, how far did you get on that list? I'm sorry, you were muted, dear.
About 2 or 3.
About
I'm
2 or
done.
3. Yes.
Yes.
I was throwing them at you like popcorn, wasn't I?
Ah, yeah.
Yes. It's like slow down, slow down. And many times we're in a hurry anyway, aren't we? And so when we approach this with that thought that I need to slow down because this person may be going through a really tough time, that they may be dealing with a lot at any one given time. Maybe it is that the person that I'm dealing with is a person that's living with dementia, right? And I know that takes on kind of another angle, doesn't it? All the more reason for me to slow down, right? Slow down, smile, approach this at a slower rate, right? So again, when we're thinking about what all is going on in our own brains when all of this is happening, we're flooded with all of those chemicals, all those hormones, and it may be hard for us to even focus on what someone is saying to me. So slowing your pace down, lowering your tone, like you mentioned, Margaret, can be really helpful in that sense. We mentioned that that mirror response earlier. And so if I do that, if I slow my own pace down, if I lower my tone, if I look you directly in the eye, rather than yelling at this level, because you're yelling at this level, you may just do exactly like I'm doing. And that's a win if you do that, right? So thinking about being brief and using few words and slowing down, right? We also want to think about not every situation are we going to be able to fix, right? I dare say all of us are joining this call. We have really good intentions. We want to do the right thing. We want to do something that's helpful. And then sometimes we go a step beyond that, trying to help. And just like Tracy said, and Jessica said, I just made matters worse by some of the things that I said and did to them, right? So when I'm saying to Rhonda, who's maybe having a really tough day, oh, don't worry, Rhonda, it's going to be okay, right? I don't necessarily know that for Rhonda, do I? So I want to be careful about what I suggest or what I try to fix when it may be outside of what I can fix. You know, if Rhonda has just gotten some horrible news about a family member who's been in an accident, you know, I want to think about that. I want to think about how can I support her in that moment rather than, well, let's try to get her mind off of that, you know? Well, Rhonda, I sure do hate that, but have you seen our dinner menu tonight? Boy, it's Cheeseburger Wednesday. I can't wait, right? Rhonda doesn't care about cheeseburgers in this sense, does she? She's worried about her family member. So I want to think about how can I help her in that sense, right? Rhonda, anybody I can call for you? Anybody that we can involve? Is there one point person in your family that we can think about communicating with so that we get accurate information and that everybody's not calling everybody all day long? Let's identify one person, right? So again, thinking about the emotion that the person is experiencing. Number 6 is that we want to think about really listening to the person, right? We mentioned that you're doing a lot when you're intervening or when you're dealing with someone who's in this state, right? Really taking the time, again, to sit down with them at eye level. If you feel like that's safe in that sense, right? Really listening. You maybe have noticed that I don't have my cell phone with me as I'm talking to you. I've put it away. Tracy was not on her phone when I went on my tirade, when I was yelling at her earlier. She was not on her phone. So that says to me, you know, she's really paying attention to me. I'm acknowledging what she's saying to me. I'm present in the moment. And I know that you have my full attention, right? Some of you from a certain generation, you know, maybe you're like me, if a pager, right? Or something like that. I'm not paying attention to that pager. I'm not paying attention to that cell phone. I'm focused on you because right now you matter and you deserve my full attention. Right. I just told on myself with the pager business, right? Yes, I used to wear a pager too, so know all about it, right? Number 7 here is one that is really important, and we're going to spend a little more time on it because this one is not so easy to do. And this one involves setting limits, right? When things are, they feel like they're getting out of control, and I need to take care of this situation. I need to tell you that what you're doing is not okay. No, in an essence, right? So this can be particularly hard to do with the person that you're dealing with. It can be even harder to do with maybe other members that are present, right? Maybe it's other family members, maybe it's other visitors, you name it. And that sometimes is really even harder to do with them. So when things like that are happening, right? I want to think, here are some words that you can use. I'm going to use a situation that I have dealt with in our hospital before, and that is a patient who was a heavy smoker, and he got into the hospital, and now he's told can't smoke, right? So, so my person said, really? I can't smoke? Well, if I can't smoke, off come the clothes, right? All of a sudden, I'm dealing with nakedness in the hallway. Oh my, right? What do I do with that, right? Here are some phrases that you can use and some approaches that you can use with that. Think about using if, then, right? If, and attach a positive to it, both to if and then. And let's say my patient's name is Johnny, right? Johnny, if you can come into your room, then we can talk about smoking, right? So Vanderbilt, as you may know, you can't smoke in the hospital or even on the campus, right? So I didn't say to the person, I didn't lie to him. I didn't say, you come in your room, you can smoke, right? No, I said, if, and I attached a positive, you come into your room. All of a sudden, he's not naked in the hallway. That's a win for me, right? Then we can talk about smoking. And here's where you judge, okay, how much information can the person that I'm trying to help in this regard, how much are they ready to hear right now? You know, my patient may not be able to hear any of it, or he may want to hear all about it. He may be able to hear that, you know what, I did a research study on the unit that you're on, and I looked at how can I best help you by using combinations of patches and gum. And I'll be glad to tell you what I found out. Maybe he wants to hear that, or maybe I don't give a crap about that. I smoke 3 packs a day and I'm climbing the walls, dude, right? So I kind of gauge where he's at with that. So I can try if, then. If that doesn't work, right? Then try when, then. Again, okay? Approach it in the sense that you're trying to align, you're trying to think about, you know, I can to a degree, I can understand the situation and the dilemma that this person may be going through. This is just a tidbit, right? This is extra. If you know their dominant side, if you know which hand they write with, talk to them on that side. We receive information better on our dominant side. Now, in the moment, you're not going to take the time to say, oh, by the way, which hand you write with? Of course not. No, if I happen to know that, right? And try it for yourself. Try receiving information on your right and on your left and see which feels better. I'm seriously right-handed. It feels better on the right. So if you know that, approach them from the side. And again, align with them. Johnny, when you can step into your room, then we can talk about smoking, right? You can do this, right? Impart some sense that you can help with this situation. And it's also an alignment in that sense too, right? So you're trying to walk a mile in their shoes in one essence there, right? So think about if, then, when, then, and attach positives to it, okay? We also, there may be times when, you know what, we're not going to agree here, right? No possible way. And sometimes we just agree to disagree, don't we? If it's not so urgent, if it is something that we can put off, right? We don't have to conquer this hill right now. We can revisit this, right, at a later time. Or if it's something that is more pressing and that it's more imminent. Kathy, like you mentioned, your situation, which really sounded like it became volatile really quickly, right? You've got to determine in that sense, am I safe? And what do I need to do to make sure that I'm safe, right? So we'll think about agreeing or agreeing to disagree, which brings us to number 9, and that is knowing when to call for help, right? And that's going to look different for all of us, depending on the situation that we're in, depending on where you are, right? So that's going to look different, but think about what makes most sense if it doesn't feel right for you. It's not right. Learn to, and maybe you do, maybe you trust your gut instinct already. And we have those kinds of instincts for really good reasons, don't we? And when we lean into those, that can be very telling, and it can help us with situations that we're dealing with, and to get ourselves out of those situations, right? If we're in particular areas and we know we're going into a difficult situation, we can also think about, okay, where is it that I'm going to talk with this person, right? And I can think about talking with them close to or proximal to a door or to a way out, right? And I want to be able to get out. If things go left really quickly and I need a way to get out, I don't want the person standing in the way of me and the only door in the room. So if that's something that I can think about when I'm going into the situation, that's something that I want to do. Okay, so working smart in your area in that sense, right? Number 10 is we want to talk about this, right? It's okay for us to talk about this. We can normalize this conversation. And we do that with a lot of things, don't we? We can talk about some difficult things like this too. We can talk about maybe with other members that were involved. We can talk about, this happened so quickly, I was scared to death. I didn't see this coming. Or here's what we did really well, right? We can focus on positives. We can think about here's what didn't go so well, right? Here are some resources that I wish we had known about these. Maybe it is that we feel like we need more resources, and that's something that we can maybe put into a safety plan, or it's something that if this happens again, here's something that I'm going to have in my tool belt to help me deal with it, maybe better than I did this time. But let's not forget to accentuate the positives or to really celebrate what we did well in this, because it's not easy on either end, is it? It's not easy for the person who's having a tough time, and it's not easy for you, the person who's trying to deal with that person and trying to help in the situation. Many times it's not as much what you say, but how you say it, right? And I bet you're not like me not unlike me in a lot of situations. If I did nothing but give you sentences to say during this whole hour, or a script, if you will, that really doesn't help a whole lot, does it? To me, it kind of reminds me of, all the fast talking at the end of a commercial. It's like the legal disclaimer part. That just infuriates me. I'm like, I don't have time to listen to that. A script is kind of the same thing for me, right? Make this conversation, make it yours, put it in your own words. And that way it's more authentic. It feels like it's really coming from you. It feels like you really care. It sounds like you have empathy for this person in that situation. So when it's real, we can gauge when it's real, right? So real goes a long way, right? And then finally, number 11, and that is self-care. And you know, that's a word that we hear a lot about, especially today and these days, right? Is self-care, and that's one that we can hear so much that we kind of become numb to it, or we take it for granted, or we say, yeah, right. But that is really important for us, and especially today, and especially coming out of the pandemic that we've all weathered. We've all been affected in lots of ways, and it's okay to acknowledge that, right? So for yourself, think about what fills your cup up, what helps you deal with the stressful situations in your life, or the family member that you're trying to help and that you are really involved with, and for your outlet, for your self-care, exactly what is that? For me, it's walking and running 4 miles every day in the park close to me. For me, it's I sing in my choir. I have lots of things that I like to think help me with this self-care business, but it's important for me to actually do it, just not be a nurse that says, well, you need to blah, 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 right? Nurse, help yourself, right? So I want to think about really some of those nurturing things, and no matter what our role is, as we're trying to help individuals when they're having tough times, or family members that experience mental illness in any way, that's a big job for us to be support systems and to continually help in those senses. So all the more reason that we fill our gas tank up and that we are good to ourselves. And yes, we practice this self-care business, right? So in the interest of your time this evening, I've left just a few minutes for any questions that you might have as far as points or some of those things that we mentioned that we can actually do and think about. So let's open up our call here for just a few minutes. We've got just a few left. So anybody have a question about anything that we've covered this evening?
Johnny, I actually have a question, and this may be something other people can relate to. When we have someone, in my case, a couple of times, a couple of different family members, psychosis. When we have somebody that's not reality based, and maybe they're not totally stressed, but starting to escalate. Do you find you use a lot of the if then or when then, with those folks, and in responding to what they're reacting to, what their reality is?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, Robin, and you mentioned that is their reality, right? That is what the person is experiencing. It may seem very, very real to them. So you want to acknowledge that, and you want to say, I hear you saying that you're hearing voices, that maybe you're feeling things, something crawling on you, or you're seeing things on the wall. I hear that you're saying, I hear that you're seeing that. That is not my experience, right? I want to ensure you that for now, you are safe. You're in a safe place. You also want to think about, is this one of those situations where I feel like I need more help, or I need to involve some of the maybe individuals that are on my safety plan, or I need some backup here, or I need someone else in the room. I need to involve someone else if they're available, right? So that you're not out on this gangplank by yourself and feeling like you're having to deal with that. So that really depends on again, you're that gauge in the moment of how much are they able to decipher, how much are they able to hear, and it may be a fact of you're in a safe place. I don't experience seeing things crawling on the wall, but I understand that is what you're experiencing right now, right? I'm going to get some help, right? So
Ask a question.
sure.
Okay. My video quit working. Why? Can you, I know that every situation is individual, but can you give a few more examples of some if then or when then examples?
Okay. So again, that's you want to put that into your words, but you can say things like, again, when you're trying to be relational, when you're trying to empathize with someone, when you're trying to understand where they're coming from, or you want to let them know that is your intention, that's what you're trying to do. You can say things like, it's really difficult to be this frustrated. It's really difficult to be this angry, right? You want to be real careful with saying, I know how you feel, right? Because we don't really know that, do we? I don't walk in your shoes. I can't, I don't have a crystal ball, and I can't magically tell exactly how you're feeling, right? So I want to be careful with some of those paintbrush type phrases. Sometimes that's really taken in a negative way too. No, you don't know how I feel. Don't you tell me to calm down. You're not my parent, right? So I want to be careful in that sense, but I want to think about saying things that are supportive like that, as far as it
I was
can
just
feel.
asking for examples because that helps me create. Like you said, if you come into your room, we can talk about smoking. So I think of, if you come into the room, we can talk about this. I was just trying to
Mhm.
have a few more examples so that it helps
Yeah.
me create.
Yes, and then part of that is being brief also,
Mhm.
right? That's kind of one of the tricks with the if then. It helps in that being brief, right? And when individuals are really bombarded and they're thinking about a lot of different things at one time, being brief in that way can be really helpful. Using the same word over and over again, right? Planting the specific word with what you want to have happen. Tracy, I know you're having a tough time with not smoking. I'd like for you to walk into the next room with me, right? You can make a healthy choice. Walk into the next room with me, right? Keep peppering Tracy with that word, that main word that you want to have happen. Walk, 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 right? Very good. Thank you, Nancy. Any other questions?
I have one.
Sure, Kim.
So I went through kind of what you're describing just last night on the phone with my brother, who was feeling very frustrated. And often that seems to be what's happening. He cannot get his needs met. He's not capable. When he asks for things, they're not possible for us to do, such as, if you would just get me a social security card, why haven't you done that already? And that kind of talking. So he won't take any responsibility to work with me to do those things. He expects that I can just do those. So convincing someone to work with you is something I really, really, really have a hard time with. And then my second thing, if it's a better example, is when when he's frustrated because he didn't get what he wanted, or he can't find something that he needs, he's insisting every time that someone is stolen it already, or that I'm interfering. That's why he can't get what he needs. Like putting the blame on all of us, and that's why he's in his predicaments.
Well, to approach that, and just in a nutshell, there are some things that we can control, and then there are some things that we can't control, right?
Mhm.
You want to think about what things can you control, and sometimes there's a focus on that, right? And that maybe we can describe that as appealing to the person's healthy side, right? As far as saying, I've picked on Tracy this evening, but if it is that that she's my smoker too, right? And in the hallway, and off go the clothes, right? I'm going to put the ball back in her court in one sense and say, Tracy, I'd like for you to make a healthy decision. Walk back into your room. If you can do that, then we can talk about smoking, right? I've said to her, if you can make a healthy choice, right? I've kind of put the ball back in her court.
So
given her an element of control back, because when we're in some situations and we feel like we've lost control, that can be very cornering, can it? It can feel like I've got to come out swinging, right? So being honest about what you can control, and then some things we're not going to conquer with verbal de-escalation. And I wish that I could tell you that there was a magic wand and there were some surefire things that you could do that are going to work in every situation. And unfortunately, we don't have that magic wand.
I have no idea what I said to him last night because I can't remember exactly, but I did it perfectly down these 11 things. Like you're saying, it's very, if you've had experience at all, and especially the longer it goes on, you begin to see what works. And I found that much of what you said is exactly what works. I just can't get him to do what I want him to do. That's where I really bump into it.
And that's frustrating on our end too, right? But acknowledging that I'm trying here, right? I'm trying with the tools that I have. I'm trying to do the best that I can, and it may not always work, but it just may as well, right?
Yeah,
so some definite things.
Throw them a lifeline and help them get an element of control with your words, understand.
Yes. Because our words are very important. So thank you for your question, Kim. I tell you what, just to respect your time this evening, Robin, I'm going to turn our meeting back over to you. I really want to thank you for your time, for sharing your thoughts, your participation with me, for some of you letting me pick on you during our Zoom call. So pleasure to meet and see those of you who I don't know this evening. And I thank you for your invitation to spend a little time with you.
Johnny, thank you so much. Could you join me?
Thank you.
We really do appreciate you spending the time with us this evening. And the other thing I'm going to add to the very last thing you say is celebrate the little victories that you have and remember them when the hard times come. Remember, you did, some things did work. Don't forget to remember that sometimes things do work. And so it's not going to work all the time, but no, Johnny, thank you so much for sharing that with us this evening. Jess, did you have something you wanted to add? It almost looked like you did. All right. Tracy, thank you for being picked on. I have to admit, it took me a moment to realize, because I know the relationship, my little tummy was going, I could feel an escalation physically. And then I realized, wait a minute, he wouldn't do that. So for those of you that are not familiar with NAMI, I want to let you know here at NAMI Davidson that we do have support groups available to you as caregivers or people with lived experience. Please visit our website at namidavidson.org. Somebody I didn't introduce tonight is Don Liacano, who is now appearing. Don is our program coordinator, and sometimes he is your first point of contact at NAMI Davidson, and he helps us get these things set up. And the person not on camera but showing a picture with her cats is Karen German, who is our admin. And Karen is also one of the first people you'll talk to on our helpline. Some of you may have talked to her to get information about tonight. Again, many thanks to Vanderbilt Behavioral Health. We love having you as partners. We always appreciate everything that you bring, and we especially will thank Johnny again tonight. Thank you, folks. Have a good evening, and make sure you reach out if you need some help. All right. Good night, all.